So Lane Kiffin went out on Twitter and is actively lobbying for Ole Miss to get into the college football playoff. As I stated earlier on the show, if I were voting, I'd put Ole Miss in over Bama if it came down to it, but I'd prefer a world in which that decision doesn't have to get made. But Bret Bielema comes out with Lane Kiffin tweeting things about South Carolina lost to the both of them and their best win is against Clemson. Ole Miss. He tweets all this stuff with outscoring opponents, and in the 3 losses, Ole Miss was outscored by 13 points. Bama was outscored by 33, and makes some good points in there in favor of Ole Miss. And then Bret Bielema, the head coach at Illinois. I mean, what a world! I didn't see this one coming. I really didn't, but I found it fascinating. So Kiffin's tweeting this stuff, and Bielema responds to him. And I quote, "I couldn't agree more at Lane Kiffin. Here is a thought for the college football playoff. Ole Miss, number 31 strength of schedule, and has 3 losses to unranked Kentucky, Florida, and 8-4 LSU team. LSU could squeak back into the top 25. We'll see what the playoff rankings do later today. Illinois has number 30 strength of schedule and has 3 losses to number 1 Oregon, which was a 38-9 football game, number 4 Penn State, a 10-point loss, and a 1-possession game to Minnesota. How about we just take the 12 best teams and see where it goes?" End quote. Welcome to the obvious reality of the college football playoff. Which good but not great resume should get in over another good but not great resume? We used to debate one great resume versus another, and it could come down to something like head-to-head, for instance, or who wins a conference championship game. Now we are debating who has the better 3-loss schedule. So if you're someone who's of the belief that a 9-3 SEC team should automatically be in over a 9-3 Illinois or a 10-2 BYU, 10-2 BYU, by the way, I'm going to talk about this more on tomorrow's show, but 10-2 BYU has a win over, who is it? Oh, that's right, number 8 SMU and potential ACC champion. I'm just going to throw that one out there, let it sit in your head for just a moment. But if you were of the belief that one of those 3 SEC teams should be the 12th and final team to get a slot in this new college football playoff, which point do you find invalid from what Bret Bielema raised in response to Lane Kiffin? Which one? You can look at the losses and say, well, I mean, they were clearly outplayed by Penn State. I'm not disagreeing with you. Oregon dominated them. That's the number 1 team in the country, the only undefeated team in all of college football, in a 1-possession game to Minnesota. If the argument, which Lane Kiffin cites, by the way, in his arguments laying out why Ole Miss should be in the playoff, Lane Kiffin puts in there in the 3 losses, so we can discuss what the losses are. What's a better string of losses? A pair of defeats to 2 of the top 3 teams in college football at the moment, plus a 1-possession loss to a solid Minnesota team, or what Ole Miss has got to put on their resume. A loss to a bad Kentucky team, a good LSU team, not great, but good, I think comparable to Minnesota. I can have the transitive property come out if you think that's a ridiculous comparison, in that LSU lost to USC, USC lost to Minnesota. How about that? Those are the 3 losses. And then Kentucky with, oh goodness, just a mild blank right there. Let's go with a reset. Ole Miss's 3 losses are to Kentucky, they lost to LSU, and they lost to Florida. Kentucky's a bad team, and then you have 2 good teams. They are good teams. They're not great. So what's a stronger 9-3 resume? Which, by the way, as he points out, is just one spot, but still a tougher strength of schedule than Ole Miss, the same record, and Illinois' losses are absolutely better because they're at a higher level competition. So I don't know what you're going to ignore. That you guys let me know. Make the other side of it without stating, well, Ole Miss plays in the SEC. The strength of schedule thing is going to come back to bite you right there. So, Bret Bielema from the top shelf. I didn't have that one on my bingo card, but boy, I thought it was worth discussing. Thus, the now concluded discussion. Let's flip the page and turn to West Virginia. So, West Virginia moves on from Neil Brown. That makes 4 Power 4 head coaching vacancies that are out there as I'm recording the show. You've got Purdue, you've got North Carolina, you've got UCF, and now you have West Virginia. Neil Brown surprised everyone last year, and then it was fine. They're 6-6, which is exactly what I predicted them to be, by the way. One of the many record predictions that I got right on, and I'll just ignore the ones where I wasn't particularly close, because it was kind of a mix of both when I look back on it. But one name that is being thrown around is Rich Rodriguez. Yes, that Rich Rodriguez. Now, I think there is an inherent reaction among certain Mountaineer fans that will arise when they hear that name. Why would you go back to the past? Why would you get this guy? I hear you. Allow me to present the other side of the coin. When you go get a coach that hasn't coached in a very long time but was successful many moons ago, I would like to know what he's been doing since then. For example, in the NFL, the Raiders hired John Gruden. Overlooking the off-the-field issues, I never thought that was going to work. It didn't. Why? He'd been away from coaching for a long time. Mac Brown had some success at North Carolina. Why was he recently fired? I never thought it was going to be the sort of hire that elevated them to a conference championship level, because he was away from coaching for a while. Rich Rodriguez has taken Jacksonville State, not in Florida, but in the state of Alabama, from the FCS level, where he was successful, to the Conference USA level, where he's once again successful. So when you hear Rich Rodriguez tied to the West Virginia job, yeah, he should be a candidate. Because if you didn't have that past connection, which was successful, by the way, before he left for Michigan, if you didn't have that past connection, and you just looked at a guy that said, look at what he's doing in a program that I don't think has the richest tradition of winning in the world, and he won at the FCS ranks, then they made a jump in competition to Conference USA, and they're winning there too? Of course that guy should be a candidate. Of course he should. Not the only one. Another name I saw thrown out for this is Jimbo Fisher. That's where you lose me. That's where you're going to the past and say, no, just no. No. Promote a GA before you hire Jimbo Fisher. Please, West Virginia, don't do that. That was in USA Today. I could not believe that. But Rich Rodriguez, I'm not saying he needs to be the top target or the only target for the West Virginia head coaching vacancy. I'm just saying it's not something you should rule out because, well, he was there once before. We don't want to try to go back to the past. No, he's still clearly capable. That much is very obvious. It's a new world of college football. He seems to be doing all right. What's the quality of the West Virginia job? That probably depends on who you ask. But is there any reason that West Virginia can't get to the top of the Big 12? I don't see one. Is there any reason Rich Rodriguez couldn't go there and succeed? I, again, don't see one.